Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to God's Grace on Thee and Angel Wallace Productions. Today is Saturday. It is the 2nd of November, and it is 8:14 a.m. here in Reno, Nevada. Today it is 37 degrees, mostly sunny. We're going to have a high of 52 degrees. Last, I left you with a foreword, an introduction into this new series from the Phoenix Journals. And today we're going to start with chapter 1. And how befitting the title, The Antichrist, Whore of Babylon. How befitting that is in reference to where we're at in our world right now. Because when I see Kamal, I see the Whore of Babylon. Let us begin chapter 1. Recording number 2, Hatton. Friday, February the 1st, 1991, 8:49 a.m., year 4, day 169. Dharma, do not be confused. The information, dedication, just written will be found, for it is nicely tucked away when Aton is through writing, and he means it. Let us continue. I request that the dedication be forwarded immediately to TB and under separate cover, a copy of Pleiades Connection. Father is calling his miracles to attention. Today's watch. As the confusion of that which is happening this day in the Saudi desert storm continues ad nauseum, know that Father watches and take to heart that which unfolds, for hidden within is also his purpose toward truth. As the confusion of that which is happening this day in the Saudi desert storm continues ad nauseum, know that Father watches and take to heart that which unfolds, for hidden within is also his purpose towards truth. And I'm queried this day on, why doesn't the U.S. Air Force take out the convoy of armored equipment headed for the border? They're trying to do so, but you see, all these lovely missiles of pinpoint accuracy are exactly that, pinpoint. So each head can only take out its single target at best. And you, dear ones, are running low on such ammunition. You were so sure of victory in the air that you used so many backup missiles that you now run low. It is exactly that upon which Saddam depended. Such a barrage in the first 2 weeks that you would cease to have cover of adequate weaponry to continue the barrage on the ground forces. The cruise missiles continue to land with deadly accuracy on civilian targets. And the U.S. is going to attempt to pull CNN's reporter out of Iraq, and Saddam knows it. That is why others are being allowed within. A journalist cannot be present as this heinous pounding of the populace and innocent citizenry takes place without seeing it for that which it is, hell intended. A chemical plant, as you describe it, in Iraq was exactly that which it said, a baby formulae factory. That is why the journalist is attempting to get some truth through to you, the people, for you are destroying the very communities where the people of innocence dwell. You're not building a desire to retreat, you are building a hate beyond that which can long be contained. Mental health among your U.S. troops. I give you information from Operation Desert Storm, which will, I hope, shock your populace into attention. You somehow think this is a lark for your men in uniform. No, they are sleeping in the sands, cooked, and then frozen. They're getting eaten by sand fleas, isolated from real information, your Pentagon says sequestered. And they do not understand what in the world they're doing there. There have been dozens of intended suicides by your U.S. servicemen along with officers who cannot send their men into this fray as it is coming down. The field hospitals are full of injured by self-infliction wounds and attempted suicides. The suicide method of choice is, of course, gunshot, but also overdosing. Now, we have received confirmation of this information straight from the Desert Storm front lines with the request to please published this in the Phoenix Express. The madness must somehow be brought to a stop. And I have further received much backup material in conjunction with the above request, and I acknowledge and I will get it to you, the people, as quickly as possible. Money, economy, and subterfuge. What have we received in great measure is backup information regarding the Soviet economic debacle, right from Moscow. You must understand that you in the U.S. get censored press, and that which makes it to the media is tampered and colored. Nonetheless, enough seeps through to make the point of truth. At response to request, I will ask Dharma to copy, please, the news story of January the 25th, 1991. Ruble decree continues to cause economic upheaval. Now, the Soviet Union, critics cite paydays with no pay, a loss of savings that could affect shoppers, and lost confidence in banks. Moscow. First there was nothing to buy, and now there's no money to buy it with. Uri Zubkov managed an ironic smile, shrugged and added, in the Soviet Union, this is called economic reform. The mood of those around him in a crowd outside a bank in central Moscow was unmistakably angry. However, and there was a bitter sense of betrayal and often a deep rage, the life savings of many were virtually wiped out by governmental decrees this week, withdrawing large denomination bills from circulation and virtually freeze savings accounts for 6 months. President Mikhail S. Gorbachev's twin goals had been to strip the country's powerful black marketeers of their operating capital and driving as many as possible out of business, and to reduce inflation, which has been running at perhaps 80% a year on the open market. But so far, the blow appears to be falling, mostly heavily on the elderly, who traditionally have kept their savings in a drawer, and on farmers who believe the banks are for city folks, on emerging entrepreneurs who operate on cash and carry basis, and on the middle class, which keeps much of its money handy in case there's a once-in-a-lifetime bargain. Am I a criminal because I bought a new stereo and sold my old one? Zubkov, an electrical engineer, asked if he sought to exchange 2,000 rubles, about $3,700 at the official rate of exchange, but only $100 on the black market. So strong are the feelings across the country that Georgy Matyukin, the chairman of the Russian Federation Central Bank, warned that serious social upheavals are possible as a result of the monetary reform, and police reported near riots outside the banks in a number of cities. The economic upheaval, however, was already apparent. The government's decision to withdraw 50 minus and 100 minus ruble banknotes, the two largest denominations, has dramatized the disintegration of the Soviet economy and the government's inability to halt it. So much currency had been printed over the last 2 years, more than 70 billion rubles worth, that it had become almost worthless. There were nowhere near enough goods to satisfy the demand, and the prices of those available was soaring. The Soviet economists are speaking of a double theft in which workers were paid with devalued rubles that often were useless to customers, but that have now been effectively confiscated by the government. And at the same time, the principal means of exchange used by the economy's growing informal sector, tightly packed bricks of green 50 ruble or brown 100 ruble notes, has been wiped out, and with it a large part of the working capital of self-employed businessmen. The economy as a whole may be in serious trouble as a result of the measure, critics argued. Matyukin said that there already have been payless paydays in a number of major cities. that the loss of savings would destroy the market for major consumer purchases, and that the overall loss of confidence would result in massive decline in bank deposits, which in turn would prevent new investment. In coming days, a riot will start at the banks. Liberal economist Igor Nit said, predicting a full run on Soviet banks and their effective closure as a result of the measure. Confidence in the banks have been destroyed. Not a ruble will go in, and every ruble will come out until the government totally freezes every account. And those who appear to have been hurt the least were the intended, or so they touted, targets. The black market dealers who have thrived on the inability of the government to meet the needs of the consumers, anticipating monetary reform, and most reportedly had moved their money to 10-ruble notes, switched to U.S. dollars or German marks, or invested heavily in goods of all sorts. The black marketeers will hardly suffer, said Professor Alexei Sergeyev, a prominent conservative economist and leading advocate of monetary reform. Our mafioso have always regarded tenors as the only reliable bills, and the same applies to Western buyers of Soviet currency. But ordinary people will suffer beyond doubt. First of all, the peasants, who have a long tradition of keeping their money at home in large denominations. Now, politically, Gorbachev's decree was quickly seen as evidence of his shift to the right, attempting to increase government control of the economy rather than move toward greater reliance on the market forces of supply and demand. This struggle against the black economy increasingly substitutes for the movement towards market relations. The radical newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda said, and Sergei Alexchenko, a pro-market economist, told the paper in an interview, "We can view this decree as part of the overall slide to the right by our president." And to those who found themselves accused of being part of a new bourgeois and losing their savings as a result, they were strong elements of Stalinist economists present in the government decree and its assumption that any cash savings beyond a month's pay, perhaps 270 rubles or roughly $500 at the official exchange rate, must be ill-gotten and confiscated. Now, the decree, moreover, reestablishes workers' control by establishing committees of co-workers to examine everyone's holdings and organizing teams of tax collectors, KGB agents, and fraud squad detectives to investigate those with more than 1,000 rubles in cash. A law-governed state does not have the right to make such decisions, Vazgen Manoukian, the Prime Minister of Armenia, commented in Yerevan. These are the characteristics only of totalitarian socialist countries. A new market quickly sprang up at railway stations as speculators, gamblers, and others with large denomination bills paid as much as 20 times the normal fare for train tickets that they hoped to redeem later for cash, with travelers willing to take the chance that they will be able to exchange the banknotes once they returned home. And Colonel Alexander Gurov, chief of the organized crime branch at the Soviet Interior Ministry, said that the move had wiped out an estimated 12 billion rubles in Soviet currency smuggled out of the country. But police had to double their deployments around the major banks in Moscow and other cities around the country on Thursday as the crowds grew angrier. End of this quotation. Excerpts from another press release, also January the 24th of 1991, Moscow. In a word, it is stealing people's hard labor and then crushing their hopes for a better life. The target may be the mafia, the black marketeers, but the real victims will be the little people, ordinary workers who kept their limited savings in cash. No, it is exactly the little people being targeted, exactly as set up in America. The entire scheme and the very printing of money notes came from the cartel, the World Bank, right in the United States of America, including the gracious and free printing of the notes and the instructions of exactly how to pull the entire maneuver off. America, you're right in line very soon. The utter immorality of this decree is bound to cost the central government what little confidence people still have in it. Ruslan Dashbulatov, Vice President of the Russian Federation, the country's largest republic, said in an interview, "Over the past 2 years, more than 70 billion of worthless rubles have been pumped into the economy by the government, and now the government is virtually confiscating this counterfeit money." Or the police were summoned to maintain order at thousands of banks throughout the country as people sought to exchange their 50 and 100 ruble notes, withdraw from circulation by Gorbachev, and grew angry when they were turned away by bank officials. Chaos ensued at railway stations and airline terminals as travelers were told that their large denomination notes would not be accepted. Tens of thousands of travelers were likely to be stranded in Moscow alone, unable to buy tickets home. Commerce in Moscow and probably most other large cities will come to a standstill until this exchange is worked out. Yuri Lukhov, the chairman of the Moscow City Council's executive committee, said. And at major telegraph offices, however, some holders of the outlawed bills managed to buy postal money orders with the money, sending it across town or even around the block as a way of getting small denomination bills for big. And black market currency dealers who normally buy and sell foreign currency started taking rubles, big notes for small ones, and often at less than half the face value, betting that with such a profit margin, they would be able to pay the bribes necessary to get the bills exchanged. The government, which said it had spent a year preparing the measure but clearly had not anticipated its impact, appealed to people not to panic, but officials of the state bank assigned to carry out the directive admitted they could give no firm assurances to those worried that their savings would be lost. On the contrary, the full regulations published Wednesday made clear that these workers who wanted to exchange more than a month's pay, a maximum of 1,000 rubles, would have to explain the origins of their money and why they kept it in cash, not in a savings bank. Committees would assess each case, and tax collectors and the KGB security police would investigate. For most people, it will be impossible to produce written records on the source of a lifetime savings, which many keep at home rather than in banks, or of legal transaction in the country's new small businesses, which operate on a cash and carry basis. Now, the government has also restricted withdrawals from people's savings accounts to 500 rubles monthly in an effort to keep money from flowing back into the overheated economy. This is almost twice the average monthly salary of 270 rubles, but only slightly more than it costs to buy a pair of fashionable imported sneakers at free market prices. At the official rate of exchange, 100 rubles is worth about $185, but its value on the street is about $4 or $5. And at the new commercial rate of exchange, 100 rubles is worth $55, and at the tourist rate about $18.50. Converted into highly sought consumer goods, a dollar might buy about 50 rubles in a further devaluation. Rumors have recurred frequently that the government was planning such a monetary reform, but only last week, Prime Minister Valentin S. Pavlov, the former finance minister, had denied it. And around the country, parliaments in the Baltic republics, as well as in Georgia, responded angrily to the measure, and legislators called on the governments to ease the burden on people there. Long lines had formed at banks in Moscow, Leningrad, Kyiv, and in other cities by dawn on Wednesday as people came to cash in their high denomination notes. Please note, This is why it was necessary to move troops into the Baltic states and seize the media, so there would be no counter to the measures being investigated. It will be worse in the United States, I can promise you. Comrades, citizens, do not panic. Valentina S. Dravenchenko, the manager of a neighborhood bank in central Moscow, shouted as a crowd of 400 threatened to break through the bank's iron grill. Tomorrow we will have money, and then you will have your money. Please, comrades, killing us will not bring your savings bank. If you must, march on the Kremlin, but don't break our doors down so we will be able to work tomorrow. Kravchenko's promise of money today or Friday satisfied a few, but many more whose cash holdings were greater than the limit allowed by the decree were clearly outraged. I'm wiped out. Timofey B. Apolinsky, a retired truck driver who now does odd jobs, said, I have 3,000 rubles, but as a pensioner I can only turn in 200. But this money is most of our savings, and now it is just so much confetti. I can't even get money out of our account now. End of this particular quotation. Dharma, just a portion of one more, and we will leave it to the pondering for America. You are next. Your government and feds have set this up, and your turn is coming. Moscow, 1/24/91. Gorbachev money decree stirs panic among savers. Soviet Union. Large denomination ruble bills are declared worthless. Besieged banks refuse to open. Angry crowds afraid that most of their savings would be lost under a government monetary reform besieged banks across the Soviet Union on Wednesday in a new panic, threatening the country's fragile economy. With wads of banknotes clutched in their hands, they pounded on the doors and the windows of neighboring savings banks, demanding that the money large denomination bills declared worthless the night before be replaced with smaller bills. But the banks, caught unawares by President Mikhail S. Gorbachev's decree, refused to open, although customers had begun lining up before dawn. And most banks had no instructions on how to carry out the exchange. The decree said only limited amounts of large bills could be exchanged without question, and no cash to do so. Gorbachev's decree had been intended to strengthen the ruble, or so was given the reasoning, the Soviet currency, to dampen inflation, and above all, to drain all available cash from the black market. But in the first day, the measure appeared to have accelerated the disintegration of the country's economy, etc., as quoted in prior notation. What think ye, America? I shall repeat once more that there are only a few possibilities of saving any of your assets which you might have felt safe and secure, tucked away and or invested in banks. You shall lose of it, for it is intended that you do so. We provided you with some working plan whereby you might save a portion or at least secure some measure of possible safety for a portion. I suggest you get in touch with Gigi of America West and investigate possibilities. The time is at hand, and the substitution of identical format as above is upon you, with just such surprise and suppression of you the people. The executive orders are in place, and this can happen to you as quickly as this very day. You are not in a war for the hell of it. You are in a massive distraction to steal your entire world away from you, and you had best be in the seeing of it or acknowledge that you will lose it all. The plan is in protection of the criminal and evil elements of your world. No more and no less. That which you do with this information is totally up to you. But God provides loopholes, if you will but be attentive. What you do with the information, I repeat, is totally up to you. Oh, by the way, the above quotations, no, they didn't come in as propaganda from abroad. They came right out of the Los Angeles Times. What happened in Russia was a trigger in timing so that the ones in charge can begin their own countdown. I suggest that whatever you do differently than that which you are doing, do it immediately, for the curtain is falling. So be it. Dharma, pull this from the machine and get Oberly to send it post haste to Gigi. The people to whom he speaks are all but out of time, and I have promised to serve in truth as best as I can, according to probabilities as presented to me. So be it, and blessings upon you, ones of lighted searchers, for soon the whole will be revealed. God does not break promises. In honor, I salute you. Gergo C. Hatton, Commander, UFF, IGFC. Chapter 2, Recording 1, Hatton, Sunday, February 3, 1991, 8:44 a.m., Year 4, Day 171. How it really is today. Blessed be the young men and women sent into the fray, for theirs is the bearing of the price of evil wars upon mankind. Man has forgotten his way and knows no other way in these days of chaos. I have witnessed the revulsion of the masses as George Bush bows in his pretense of thanking God, for it is indeed blasphemous unto the very essence of truth. He tells the people to be thankful, for the dead are now in a place of perfection with the Father of perfection. So be it. Perhaps it may be a kinder and gentler placement than the Father of your nation provides, for he provides hell, and you applaud him. You watch as a young wife thanks Bush for killing her husband. Oh, you think that's not what she does? Think again. And we're so touched and appreciative that this humble man would bother to come to us and shake our hands in sympathy. America, where are you? Demonstrations. What would you do? Note that there seems to be no way to support your sons and daughters without showing the support of war. If you wave your flag and show your yellow balloons and ribbons in support of your men and women, you, through the press and media, also seem to be supporting the war. How can this be that you in America have reached a point of claiming that one who is against the war is also against your troops? Who is the group wishing to bring the sons and daughters home alive? This is representation in its finest measure of how you have given away your Constitution and now demonstrate in favor of that which is 100% unconstitutional. And you have also made your point to the world of intent. You have appointed another Israeli to the council who confirms the intent of expelling Palestinians from occupied territory. And the media then shows you pictures of happy Israelis coming into new trust with America. I remind you, the West Bank Palestinians are under curfew with orders to the soldiers to shoot to kill ones who break curfew. They are not allowed out of their homes to either seek safety or gather food and water. Is this your freedom, America? Oh, Mr. Shamir is happy, by the way, Chelas. What think ye a little gray alien looks like? Ponder it most carefully, for you're about to be had by them. Remember something most important. Satan never does his own dirty work. He always has his henchmen to do the work for him, and he remains looking very good and loving unto you. Also remember, it is now the ones on your placement, earthbound, who are your enemies in truth and your friends in destruction. So be it. Now for Saddam. I have no particular comment regarding Saddam other than he has rallied Iraqis willing to forfeit life in order to use up your ammunition. Further, he is not taking tranquilizers to maintain sanity and all those other things you are being told. He is calculating and cunning, and he takes nothing. It is against the law to do so. Tranquilizers and drugs are those things of the Western culture, and you ones should know these truths without my having to tell you. Now, what of those missile bunkers that are being so-called blown up? Again, he's allowing you to use up your smart weapons on minor targets while he continues to hide his arsenal of real weaponry. Further, you are losing it, America. You are truly bombing innocent centers and living communities. And the hate is building, whereby there are thousands of volunteers to die in suicide squads to balance a score. You are truly dealing with eye for eye. Life, my friends. And why do you think that none of his major technical weapons have been yet utilized? Your war touters of false projections are making fools of you, the people, and cannot fodder of your sons and daughters. This man will not go down easily, and now his entire populace is more solidly with him than ever before, as you bomb their women and children who are held in total reverence. Am I on Saddam's side? No, but neither am I on the side of the American military war machine, not your corrupted government. I have but one purpose: the bringing home into truth and justice the souls of mankind, any man, anywhere. Support your troops. Of course, you forget the troops are not the war. The troops are the individual children who would be learning a skill and career and have been trapped into war. I abhor and despise such manipulation of the innocent at the hands of the radicals who will rule your world. You will both pay in money the cost of your own incarceration and ensure the control in the name of the cartel elite after they have taken your world. It would appear to me that your conjecture that God supports you might very well be erroneous indeed. Who does God support? Anyone who will come again into his laws with intent through love and godness. God, friends, does not support groups. God supports individuals, wherever there may be, and whatever color, race, or creed. If you have lied to your sons and daughters, I would be getting things squared away with God right away, for you are getting into deeper and more serious soul danger every passing hour. And it will not be me pleading for mercy that will cut it with God. You will plead for mercy and turn into truth if you would save thine souls, each and every one. I can no longer plead in behalf of you in ignorance, for we are bringing forth truth. And if you decline to come into truth, so be it. For none will force of truth upon you. The awakening is coming and rising above the noise of the crowds and fixed voices of your media enemies. The voice of America shall rise again. I only ask God that it be heard in time, for the world is already passing the point of no return, if action is not overwhelmingly toward truth very quickly. All things regarding your freedoms now rest in the hands of the puppet. Bush at the hands and instruction of his puppet masters. They are the intended slave masters, and you are the intended slaves. And you had best look very closely at this statement with open mind and clarity of vision. And when the masters tell you that things are going beautifully and right on schedule, believe it. But it is not your schedule for freedom. It is the global plan 2000 coming down in total perfection against you. And if you read no other journals, please read Spacegate, Spiral to Economic Disaster, Skeletons in the Closet, Rape, Ravage, Pillage, and Plunder of the Phoenix, Rape of the Constitution, and You Can Slay the Dragon. If you remain uninformed about truth of your circumstances, there is not a hope of your finding balance again upon this planet. Upon your eyes, ears, and minds, and you can yet turn it about. I can only plead with you to wave your heavenly banners and support your troops to your last breath. Demand that this war stop and that they be allowed to come home to tend of their own country and families who are in piteous circumstance, are defending evil and the suppression of the globe by the elite. The media and the press are intentionally controlled and set up as mis- and disinformation centers, which they will later tell you was intentional to mislead Saddam. No, it is structured to mesmerize the populace of blessed America and those who are about to perish in the name of the lie. So be it. May God show mercy upon the innocent. Cosmic Codes and Pleiades Connections. To you who plead with me to continue with that subject and postpone the current writings, of which the most recent goes to press this week, Burnt Offerings and Bloodstained Sands. I must remind you, if you do not get your world in control, Cosmic Codes and Pleiades Connections will mean nothing except to the few who journey in service unto God and brotherhood of truth and light. It is that simple an explanation of how it is. God will walk every step with you, give you instructions for assistance even with your most worldly perceptions and assets, in hopes of finding the truth in confirmation. Beyond that, you will face it quite alone in the judgment by God Himself. There are ways to protect yourselves and your assets, and you heed them not in general mass. What expect ye of God? God does not force. He provides the way and the truth, and you will do that which you will. So be it, and Selah, for the word is given, and the word is God. And if I might give one thought for this given day and passage, it would be to get informed immediately, not yesterday or tomorrow, right now. And further, if you would hope to move with assets and ability to remain able to function, adhere to the instructions for help as given, and turn again unto God and His laws within balance and harmony of the creation. For naught else will see you into a return to balance. We are sent forth and come forth in love and bearing instructions. It is all that we can do, for until things worsen to the point of annihilation of the planet herself, we will not intervene. Ours is to bring truth and instructions through unto that which is immortal, your immortal minds and souls. What you will do with that truth in your consciously physical actions is purely up to you. God has sent forth ones to bravely pronounce how it is, and ye slay them. Others willingly come in you effort to silence them. Also, but truth will stand into infinity, for ye cannot slay truth. And to slay the truth bringers only merits the demerits in your written records of God's book of life. Ponder it most carefully, for ye teeter on the edge of the abyss most precariously. Aho. Dharma, take this from the machine and give it to Oberly to forward to Gigi. I can really offer no more this morning, and I must place a stop to this emotional blockage with the writings of others in God's and Sananda's name. There is willful misunderstanding which is being intentionally fostered and accepted. I care not how emotional individuals react. God's words shall not go forth until they are truly God's words and not those of earth individuals. Hard? So be it. But anything to do with physical is of earth. God's intent for soul awakening is of God. It is written as His own words, and separation of the two must be made. If ones feel put upon or wounded, then they must look within at why. If you write for God as His scribe, you have no input as to the message, good or bad in your perception. If you write of your own perceptions, right or wrong, it must be put into your own label and presented as such. The very toying going on regarding Sananda's expression is ably pointing out the fact that it cannot be wholly of God, and nothing lesser is acceptable in His name. In this statement, I speak on behalf of Aton and not Commander Hatton. So be it. One's involved will come into balance and separation from the emotional attachments to self-ego and wounded pride, or move aside that the truth may be brought forth through another. Man is pleading for instruction and information on how the churches fell into decline at the hands of democratic voting and not more New Age material. If that is not accomplished, then other resource of bringing forth that documentation and historical material shall be appointed. Are you there to do God's work or thine own? It is indeed a simple question, and quite easy to discern by the words springing forth from thine own mouth. Man must first hear truth, and then he can be given that which help him to find balance within that truth. Out of sequence, it only causes pain and more confusion. Good day, and I ask that peace be your solace within. Giergo Sihaton, Commander, UFF IGFC.